Buckingham Palace says that King Charles has started the process to strip Prince Andrew of his title.
Prince Andrew never really leaves the news, but there's been a sort of tsunami of coverage over the last couple of weeks.
What's happened with Andrew losing his title and now her losing Duchess of York, it just proves that the York brand is totally toxic.
Ever-evolving soap opera, that is, of course, what's happening over at Royal Lodge.
The layers of duplicity and shallowness, this is a new low.
He's living in disgrace. He was stripped of his royal duties, and part of that is he's not really being paid by the monarchy anymore because he doesn't complete any royal duties.
King Charles has stripped his brother of everything. Prince Andrew lost his titles: Prince, Duke of York, Earl of Inverness, Baron Killyleagh. He lost his honours: Order of the Garter, Knight Grand Cross of the Royal Victorian Order. He lost his home at Royal Lodge, now moving to smaller accommodation at Sandringham. The demolition has been systematic, swift, and extraordinarily public. Yet one thing remains: Vice Admiral in the Royal Navy. And the reason it's still there reveals tensions between the palace and government that nobody's discussing openly. Defence chiefs have reportedly been told to get on with it and remove Andrew's final remaining military title. Those exact words. That phrase alone tells you everything about the frustration building inside palace walls. Yet weeks have passed since that directive, and the title remains. The Ministry of Defence says simply that the matter is ongoing, which raises the obvious question: if the palace wants it done, if the government says it will be done, why hasn't it been done? Admiral Lord West, the former First Sea Lord and Chief of Naval Staff, publicly stated that it seems extraordinary that removing this title is taking so long. He cannot understand why it's proving so difficult. When someone of his rank and experience, someone who understands naval protocol and military procedures intimately, uses the word extraordinary, it signals that something genuinely unusual is happening behind the scenes. Here's what makes this situation complicated. King Charles can strip royal titles. He's already done that through royal prerogative, the monarch's inherent authority over royal honours and styles. Prince Andrew is no longer His Royal Highness. He's no longer Prince Andrew. He's now simply Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, a private citizen with no official royal role. But military ranks operate differently. Those fall under government authority, not royal prerogative. The Ministry of Defence must act, and they're moving with deliberate slowness that's frustrating palace officials. The context matters here. Andrew served in the Royal Navy for 22 years until 2001. That service was genuine, not ceremonial. He flew helicopters during the Falklands War as a Sea King pilot. He saw combat. That military service actually happened, regardless of what came afterward. The honorary rank of Vice Admiral was awarded in February 2015 for his 55th birthday. He was scheduled to be promoted to full Admiral on his 60th birthday in 2020, but that promotion was deferred after Andrew stepped back from royal duties following his disastrous Newsnight interview. So the rank sits frozen at Vice Admiral. Not stripped, not promoted, simply frozen in place. Meanwhile, Andrew has faced renewed scrutiny following Virginia Giuffre's posthumous memoir. She took her own life in April, and her 400-page biography was published afterward. In it, she alleged she was trafficked by Jeffrey Epstein to have sex with Andrew on 3 occasions. Andrew has consistently insisted he never met Virginia Giuffre, yet despite that insistence, he paid millions to settle a civil sexual assault case with her in 2022. Think about that timeline carefully. He maintains he never met her. Then he settles a lawsuit for millions of dollars. Then her memoir gets published with additional detailed allegations. And through all of this, the denials, the settlement, the memoir, Vice Admiral remains attached to his name. One final institutional connection that hasn't been severed. Buckingham Palace issued what many observers called a bombshell statement. It announced that His Majesty has initiated a formal process to remove the style, titles, and honours of Prince Andrew. The statement specified that Andrew will now be known as Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. His royal titles were removed immediately. The lease on Royal Lodge was terminated. He will move to alternative private accommodation. The statement concluded with particularly significant language. These censures are deemed necessary, notwithstanding the fact that he continues to deny the allegations against him. That phrasing matters enormously, notwithstanding his denials. The palace made their position clear. They're acting regardless of what Andrew claims about his innocence. But here's what that comprehensive statement didn't mention at all: Vice Admiral, because the palace cannot remove it. Only the government can, and the government is proceeding at a pace that clearly frustrates royal officials. So what's actually causing this delay? From a purely procedural standpoint, Admiral Lord West is correct. It shouldn't be difficult. The government has clear constitutional authority over military honors. Precedent exists for revoking such titles in extraordinary circumstances. The mechanism exists. Yet something is slowing the process down, and that something appears to involve complications nobody's making explicit publicly. The government faces a genuinely delicate situation. They must formally revoke a military honor from someone who served in combat. Andrew flew helicopters in an actual war. He faced real danger during the Falklands conflict. That service happened regardless of his subsequent behavior. Stripping someone who saw combat of their military rank carries significant weight. It sends a message not just about Andrew specifically, but about how military service gets weighed against personal conduct when scandal emerges. The Ministry of Defense is moving carefully because this creates precedent. What standard are they establishing? What conduct justifies revoking honors from veterans? Andrew hasn't been convicted of any criminal charges. He settled a civil case while maintaining his denials. From a strict legal standpoint, he retains presumption of innocence in criminal matters. So the government must navigate removing an honor from someone who technically hasn't been proven guilty in any criminal court. That's politically sensitive and legally complex. It requires balancing respect for military service against public expectations for accountability. It means weighing constitutional principles against practical realities, and it forces government officials to establish standards that could potentially apply to other cases in the future. Meanwhile, the palace clearly wants this resolved, hence the reported directive to get on with it. King Charles has been decisive in his actions, titles removed immediately, home taken without delay. Public statement issued swiftly. He acted with the kind of speed that signals he views this as urgent institutional necessity. But he needs the government to complete the final piece, and they're not moving at the pace he apparently wants. This creates genuine tension between the monarchy and government. The palace cannot publicly pressure elected officials to act. That would violate fundamental constitutional norms about the separation between crown and government. But privately, the frustration is clearly significant. Get on with it means exactly what it sounds like. Stop delaying and finish this. There's another dimension to this delay that's worth examining carefully. The longer Andrew retains Vice Admiral, the longer he maintains some connection to an official institution. That connection carries status, even if diminished. It carries identity. It represents something beyond just private citizenship. Andrew's entire adult life was built around institutional affiliations. The royal family, the Royal Navy. Those identities defined who he was publicly and likely how he understood himself. Now he's been completely severed from the royal family. No titles, no honors, no residence within the royal estate structure, no public role whatsoever. But Vice Admiral remains. It's one last thread connecting him to something official, something that says he served his country, that his military career mattered. Removing it completes the separation entirely. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor becomes simply Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, private citizen, former prince, with no institutional affiliations of any kind. That finality matters psychologically. For Andrew personally, it represents the absolute end of his public identity. For public perception, it signals complete institutional rejection. For achieving closure on this entire saga, it marks a clear endpoint rather than an ambiguous halfway state. The delay prevents that closure from happening. It keeps the story active in public consciousness. it maintains ongoing questions about his status. It allows Andrew to claim one remaining honor, while everything else has been taken away. From the palace's perspective, that situation is clearly unacceptable. Either he's stripped of everything or he's not. Half measures create ambiguity and ongoing controversy. The Ministry of Defense's ongoing status keeps that ambiguity alive, which may be precisely why the process is taking longer than it theoretically should. Because once Vice Admiral is officially removed, there's nothing left to negotiate, nothing left to discuss, nothing left to delay or reconsider. The process becomes permanent, final, and irreversible. And perhaps the government isn't quite ready for that finality yet. Perhaps the procedural caution genuinely reflects careful consideration of precedent and constitutional principles. Perhaps officials want to ensure they handle this correctly rather than rushing and potentially creating legal complications later. Or perhaps something else entirely is happening in discussions between palace officials and government ministers that hasn't been made public. What we can confirm is this: King Charles acted decisively to remove everything within his constitutional authority to remove. The government was formally asked to remove what remains beyond royal prerogative. Defense Secretary John Healey publicly stated the government would work to remove Andrew's Vice Admiral title. That seemed like clear commitment. Yet weeks later, the Ministry of Defense says only that the matter is ongoing with no timeline provided. The delay is extraordinary. That's not speculation. It's the assessment of Admiral Lord West, someone intimately familiar with naval protocol. The palace is frustrated enough that "get on with it" was reportedly communicated to defense chiefs. And Andrew continues holding Vice Admiral while occupying this strange liminal space between total exile from royal life and final separation from all official recognition. The central question isn't really whether the rank will eventually be removed. Healey's statement suggests that outcome is predetermined. The question is what's actually causing delay when the process should theoretically be straightforward. What complications exist that haven't been acknowledged publicly? What considerations are slowing something that former senior naval officials find inexplicably difficult? And whether the time it's taking reveals genuine procedural caution, political reluctance, or something else entirely that remains hidden from public view. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor has lost everything except one thing. And that one thing, his Vice Admiral rank, is revealing tensions between palace and government that nobody's discussing openly. Tensions between swift, decisive action and careful constitutional procedure. Tensions between public expectations for accountability and legal principles about presumption of innocence. Tensions between what King Charles clearly wants done and what elected government officials are willing to do on the timeline he apparently expects. The Ministry of Defense says the matter remains ongoing. How long it stays in that ongoing state depends on decisions being made right now in defense offices and cabinet discussions. The palace can only watch, wait, and privately express frustration that the final piece of Andrew's institutional dismantling hasn't been completed. And we're left watching this peculiar standoff where everyone agrees what should happen, yet it still hasn't happened, and the reasons why remain frustratingly opaque. That's it for today, folks. See you in the next video.